So my first question is, um, there's never enough money. Arts organizations, advocacy groups are are always, looking for the next dollar, and it's the old adage, it'd be nice if the Air Force had to have a bake sale to buy a bomber, and we had all the money in the world. It doesn't work that way, and that's just reality. So, you're constantly working with your own organizations and then outside groups who are always looking for that next dollar. How do you sustain your work when you're always so concerned about the budget? You've had the biggest budget crisis here.
Um, I think that it's a love for the arts. It's a belief in the possible, and it's a commitment, and getting those people that share that commitment to work with you. There isn't a way to, I mean, there isn't a specific answer to that question, because you funding is very volatile. You know, you're a darling one year and the next year you're not. And so you just have to keep moving forward and building and believing in the work that you're doing.
You're a nonprofit organization,
Correct.
right? Yeah. So I guess I would say, in my experience with when I worked for the city, I mean, when I worked for the Richmond Art Center, which was housed in the Richmond Civic Center and closely aligned with the Richmond Arts and Culture Commission, and when I worked for the city of Oakland, which in the Cultural Arts Department, they have a commission, and then my county commission is part of the government. I would say in all those circumstances, I would say that the key is really having some good structures in place with your bylaws to have staff support that work in the city or the county, and build key relationships with people in both in like leadership positions, but also just administrative positions. Those are the things that I've seen that have kept the money in place for sort of like core elements of those commissions to keep moving. Even though in every circumstance, there has always seemed like there was a point where it was a desperate time and almost no money was available. But I've seen the structure, the bylaws, systems, and staff in the city or the county are essential.
So something you just said is something that you talked about in every one of your projects had a partner, and there was a partnership, and there was a relationship between an artist, an organization, and the city. So how have you been successful in nurturing those?
Well, I think we've had a few of the right people in the right place at the right time. So we had a city manager who came from Benicia, who has a really strong public art program, and he was bound and determined to bring that to Reading. So I think he kind of set the tone that that was something cities should do. And then, really, because there isn't anybody, there's no budget and there's no funding, you know, we just look, people always have ideas, and I think one thing that our community services department is good at is like always having an open door. Like, we'll listen to anybody that wants to have an idea about something, and we know enough people to say, oh, if that's a good idea, who else can we bring to the table? But I would say the Arts Council in particular, we had our own little, like, I think they're going bankrupt, and I was really worried for a while, because if they lost the lease at Old City Hall, I didn't think they'd ever get it back again. And so that's a great building. It's downtown. It's very key to being a vibrant art cultural district that we're looking at. Having Deborah Lucero show up at the right time and really, turn that group around to be a player and then play better with others. So nobody does anything by themselves, really.
And
I would just add to your example that in my examples of the two cities in the county, there are public art ordinances, and so if I don't know if it applies to your community, I know it's hard to get them passed in some areas, but that has been the key aspect to the survival of those public art programs. So it's in all the two cities in the county, there's an ordinance that requires that part of construction projects that in my case it's 2%, but sometimes it's 1%, of the construction costs will be used for public art. Both the City of Richmond, I think they have a private development ordinance, and then also the City of Oakland has one also. And in Emeryville, for example, they don't have a public percent for it, but they have a private percent for it program. It's extremely robust because they have lots of building projects there. And so that's often a key strategy for cities and counties to have a public art programs.
So you have relevance by statute, in a sense, because it goes back to what you said about relevance equals sustainability. So when you don't have the statute, how do you develop your relevance?
Well, I think it's identifying, working with the community. I mean, on one of the slides I say we really had to look at ourselves seriously and then listen to what people were saying. And so what you're doing here today, bringing people together and hearing what other people are interested in and what you might do to strengthen your programs. We also have a percent for the arts in the county and in the city. And so for our public art programs, that is an opportunity for us. But for other programming and identifying if we were relevant, our Poet Laureate program was a program that in the central San Joaquin Valley, we are truly a mecca for writers. I mean, we've had 2 national Poet Laureates, and we now established a Poet Laureate program for the city of Fresno that's appointed by the mayor every year, because writers came to us and they said, you should do this, and how can we make this happen? And so I said, it's possible, let's just figure it out. And so now we have a strong poetry program. Our Poetry Out Loud program has strengthened, and we have an annual Lit Hop, which is a literary one-day program where there's readers all over town, and every single venue is packed. But we wouldn't have done that if we wouldn't have listened to the literary community who said, we need a Poet Laureate.
So then what are your partnerships like with both in your community, the private sector, and then the public sector, education, the cities, the libraries, like you spoke about, where art is as now a crucial thing. How have you been successful in developing your partnerships, and what have those looked like? Anybody?
Well, it's a pretty small group of people in Reading that run most of these things, so we see each other all the time. So it is, it's the people that are doing our Healthy Shasta initiative, our community events and things like that. And so luckily, and people move, maybe like Chico, people move to Reading and they kind of stay. And so you have people who've been in their places for a long time. And so those relationships are really strong. And so I have probably 10 people that I can call up and say, hey, we really want to do this. Will you help me? And they'll come to a meeting and talk about it. So, and I would do the same for them, just why I'm here right now. So I think that, it is having people that can represent their organizations and come to the table with something that can help, but also being willing and able to help other people accomplish their things so that when you have something, they'll show up for you too, and that you have that core. And then we know who has money, so we know who to ask when we need a little more cash infusion to help get something off the ground. And we have to be careful, can't. Unfortunately for us, it's kind of a handful of people that have that money that we all tap out a lot. But I think there's a sense of, and I think we don't have a lot of politics around. I'm sure Deb would say we have a little bit of politics around the artist community, but I think people are just happy to see anything happen, so we don't get a lot of criticism about the things that we do. And in our public art program, we try to do a variety of different things. And that's what I tell them. You may not like that blue thing in front of the library, but you probably like the fly fisherman, or you probably like, the sundial bridge, or you probably like, things like that. So we're not trying to. We know you're not going to like everything, and it would be kind of boring if you did. So. But we don't have a lot of internal fighting about what it is that we do, so at least everybody seems to support the good things that do happen.
Yeah. We also looked outside of the arts community to create partnerships. We now have an annual exhibit with Fresno County Mental Health, and they do an exhibit of their clients' artwork. And they do that in our space, in the Fresno Arts Council space. So when you look at partnerships, sometimes they're not the most obvious partners. Art happens everywhere and is for everyone. And if we can be more inclusive, we have our early childhood education programs. Some folks make a distinction between crafts and art, and there's kind of this highbrow thing. We had the Happy Hookers exhibit in our space. They're rug artists, and so there's just reaching out to a variety of folks so that everybody feels that they're a part of the arts community.
What do they charge?
Well, it depends on the size of the rug.
One of the things you said when we spoke was that you found success in looking for the voids, finding where the need is in your community and going there. And you have such a huge community. You can't serve everyone. So do you look for the voids? Do you find where the need is and put the program there?
I think for my circumstance, we only have a few little direct programs and services. Really, because the county's so big, we see ourselves as more of an advocacy network sort of philosophy. But we have our public art, and we give out grants and whatnot. But some of the work, as mentioned, the work is really trying to be focused on advocacy and raising the awareness of the importance of arts and creativity and that everyone is creative. So we don't actually try to reach everybody. It would be impossible. It's a huge area. But about the partnerships, I would say it's not really voids as much as looking for strategic partners, always just keeping an eye out, thinking through if somebody might be a good partner, and then trying to stay in touch with that person. And I think setting up regular ways to meet with potential partners, even once or twice a year, and kind of keep going with thinking through if there's a way to work together. Understanding mutual goals, not necessarily promising to do something together, but looking for strategic ways to work together that is relatively easy and simple to do. Plus, I think important partners for me are just individuals that have key positions that I try to stay in contact with over the years. Over years and years and years of working together, I think that really can make a difference with support. But sort of different from your story is Alameda County is so huge that I could never assume that I know everybody. It's so dynamic that I'm always sort of trying just to be open to meeting new people and new opportunities. Yeah.
Do we have some questions from out there? Yes.
Well, I was just thinking, I'm the current president of Artists of Rivertown. It's a little local group, and we're trying to get things going. And how important is having a storefront for your organization? We're looking. Did everybody hear that? Okay. Well, my name is Dave Tamori, and I'm from Orville, and I'm the president of Artists of Rivertown. It's just a local group of visual artists right now. We don't have a storefront, and I was just going to ask the group. Well, we do have a gallery in the senior center, but we don't really have a storefront. So I'm just asking, out of curiosity, how important that would be for an organization to do that.
Run away. What do you think?
Well, we have multiple groups like that in Fresno County. And we do an event every first Thursday. It's like an art walk. I think some places have First Fridays. We do First Thursday. And individual artists or arts organizations knock on our door all the time. And they don't have a venue. They don't have a place to show. And so we invite them to come out to Art Hop, meet the different gallery owners, see if there's a fit. We don't make a recommendation, but we invite them to meet the gallery owners, look at the spaces, and if they can work well together, then they have a show in that space next time. We also have some collectives, and Sorensen's is probably the best example. Sorensen's is a metal artist, so he had a big welding shop that was a big garage. he broke it up into small gallery spaces. And so now some of those groups that didn't have a home will have a gallery space there to show their work. And so creating collectives is another way to do that. It's important to have a place to show. So that was your initial question. But whether it's your own or you're showing in someone else's space, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Over here.
I was to say I think the storefront's really important in terms of being a gathering place, and one of the things that the Shasta County Arts Council does is serves as that umbrella for lots of different groups that use that to be their space once a month or once a week, and so it adds synergy and energy to that one place to build that, and then it also brings artists of all different abilities and interests to have some shared spot. So I think having some physical identity is important.
Hi, I'm. Is it on? Hi,
go.
I'm. Oh, hi, I'm Cynthia Sexton. I'm wearing two hats. I'm the owner of 9th Avenue Gallery, and I'm also president of Chico Visual Arts Alliance. There are many organizations here in Chico that provide various artist venues, of events. How do you see, or how does that work in your communities with those types of people? Do you work with them? Are they independent? Is there some sort of cohesion or link with your councils so that everyone's, taking advantage of, I guess, of your promotional opportunities that we may not individually have? Could you explain that for us, please?
I'd say for us, the marketing piece is probably the one, because you can't host everybody, and actually we have a lot of different little groups too, so you can't really everybody always be on the same page. But they put out a really great weekly events calendar that I think most people that are on, it's kind of the go-to list. So I think there are some things, and also asking for grant, when grant opportunities come out, and knowing who in the community might be a good match for those is a resource. And then referrals. So a lot of times we get people to move to town that like, oh, I'm a sculptor or this or that. Like, where's a group I can fit into that? Because we have a downtown location is a real good resource and referral for that.
When our community did Art Hop, it was just kind of an open call to venues, gallery owners who wanted to show art in the community. And it really wasn't monetized. One of the things that we had to do to help us sustain and continue to do the work was to charge a fee. It's a small fee, it's $150 a year. And all the venues who want to be official Art Hop venues will pay that fee. And we then provide them with a brochure that has a map of all the various galleries and venues. We put out an e-blast every Monday before First Thursday so that the community that's interested in art will be able to see those things. Because we do this, the local publications have picked up on it. One of our television stations has a monthly Art Hop guest artist, and so one of the galleries is showcased. So through that, we've been able to work with our local galleries and independent venues.
Can you explain and share your relationship with your public schools, your outreach? How do you serve the schools? How do they work with you?
I'll mention quickly on for the county level, there's a county office of education. So on a county level, that's a natural partner that most, I think, ideally every county arts commission would be partnering with their office of education, which is like a subdivision of the state office of education. It's not a department of the county. And they are also working on oversight and big picture strategies for the whole area, and specifically they have a division that works on arts education advocacy, but I don't work specifically with the school districts.
We actually have an alignment with our school site principals, some school site principals. art at the elementary school level in our county was virtually non-existent. Whether it's theater, dance, or visual art, you have instrumental music that starts at 5th grade, and everyone gets that, and that continues to grow. And so for our district, that was the commitment to the arts. But because we recognize that the other disciplines need to be introduced as well, it is part of the California state curriculum. It's not optional, it's a requirement. And so we felt it was important, and that was one of the voids that we picked up. We felt it was important to strengthen our arts and education because it also leads to creating new audience. And so we developed a teaching artist program that aligns classroom teachers and practicing artists. Now, a practicing artist may not be capable of going into a classroom and teaching without some kind of training. So we created a handbook and a training program where we train practicing artists to work on lesson plan development, classroom management skills, Common Core standards, and VAPA standards, which are the visual and performing arts standards that every artist, if they're going to work in the schools, needs to know. And so now we place those trained teachers into a classroom and partner them with the classroom teacher to teach integrated arts lessons.
Didn't you
And
tell
those
me
are
that?
contracts.
And didn't you tell me that Fresno State has also taken your handbook and has now incorporated it into their teacher training program?
Actually, what's happened is it's been incorporated into the arts department so that any arts student that takes classes through arts and humanities at Fresno State can choose to receive a certificate as a teaching artist. And that's really good for a student coming out of the university, an art student, because most art students are not going to be established artists immediately. And if they want to practice their craft and still have a job, then then they can have this certificate, and we will then place them in the school.
Stephen, we have a question up here.
Hey there, my name's Jake. I live here in Chico. I work at KZFR Community Radio, and I book and promote shows at Duffy's. So I'm going to be more specific to music, but obviously one of the arts. We have Chico State here in town, and to say that they are uninvolved in music would be a vast understatement. They have Chico Performances, but that's a separate business entity, as you guys probably know. Anyway, their complete disinterest hurts us in the local music community by never being engaged. And it's been getting worse and worse over 15 years. And at this point, there's nothing. So what is your advice in trying to engage an uninterested bureaucratic behemoth like a university? How do you involve somebody like that that really has a lot of power but chooses not to do anything? What advice can you offer on getting someone like that involved?
Well, I would say we don't have a university, so in some ways it just forces you to, I think you have to do what you can do with what you can do. So I guess I'm not a good example, but it seems a little bit like I don't know that you need a university either to have a vibrant local music scene. So I wouldn't let that be a big burden for you.
Go ahead.
I guess I would say we all love the arts and creativity. And I think we sometimes suffer from, being inside our little camps within the big arts world. And I think probably good, clear, positive communication with the people that you're trying to get to will result in only good, positive outcomes.
All right. Hi, I'm Jerry Crosby. I'm principal at Inspire School of Arts and Sciences. And by the way, everybody, we've got a production coming up. You should go. Into the Woods, starting in just 2 weeks. But kind of piggybacking on the prior remark that was made, not to say that Chico State hasn't reached out to us, because they do all the time. I was really intrigued over the summer working at Dallas, where they have a Center for the Arts, talking to some people in a rural community, Interlochen, where they also have Center for the Arts. Do you think it is helpful if we in our community could create sort of a mecca, and whether that's based around our university or based around some other organization? I really felt like it empowered them to have a unifying space, a unifying organization or principle under which they were sort of all under the same umbrella. And in that synergy, all of them got more. Do you guys have anything like that working in your areas? Do you think that's important, or is it better for us to have these smaller voices and perhaps greater creativity?
I'd take Interlochen in a heartbeat, but I think that that's its own project. So if you could pull that off, I think I've been there a few times. I have family in Michigan, so I think if you could pull something like that off, it's extremely powerful. But that reputation's been built over many years and lots of donors. So I do think when you have facilities and you have programs and you have that all in one place, it certainly has more potential and exponential potential than when you're spread out.
I just think that you just need to be careful with things like that because of access and equity. You want to make sure that whatever you do, it is accessible to everyone. And in large rural communities, sometimes that's a greater challenge.
Question over here. I think we have time for one more after this, and then we're going to take a quick break and keep this party rolling.
I represent the Janet Turner Print Museum, and I'd just like to say that this is a part of the Chico State University campus as well as the public. And we have programs for art education for the children based around what's on our walls. We have at least 3 programs for children. We have one program which involves a partnership with the Ollie Education. So I would say that at least where the art is concerned, I'm proud of how the university does interact. Kids on the bus, that's right, kids at the Turner, all these different things. And we've hosted 3 seminars for all art teachers in Butte County to come and learn more about teaching art. It's not my specialty, so I can't wrap off the anachronism, I'm sorry. But we do look forward to relating to the community in art education.
My question sort of centers around the county itself. As far as I know, and Deborah would know this, Butte County doesn't have any advocacy for, as the Butte County office doesn't have any advocacy for the arts, do they? And how, I think, no, I'm talking about Butte County government, the government. So what I'm wondering, in that question, how important is it to have the county involved with the individual cities within the county in advocating for the arts?
Ours is kind of funny because it's called the Shasta County Arts Council, and the county does 0. So, and in fact, I think they get a couple appointments, or at least one. Yeah.
Well, they used to. We changed our bylaws, and
Okay,
now they
so,
cannot appoint.
I think that you have to go where the support is, and so, it is. We didn't really talk about that, but especially as an upstart, trying to get this thing, you need to find some champions in your city councils, and that Reading is kind of the big dog up, and we have 2 other little cities that don't contribute too much. So Reading is really the county seat, but also the biggest city by far. So it takes champions in the right place at the right time that will at least get you off the ground and give you a start, and then you have to take it from there. But finding those people that will be willing to say, you know what, we're spending all this money on this other thing. Let's throw a little bit to arts and at least start something. You need to support those people. You need to find them and support them, and encourage them to be there to get that going.
I would say that for my county arts commission, all of the things that are in place were spearheaded and took place because of probably just one or a few people who were probably mapping on to other good ideas they saw in other places, and were able to work on them slowly. I always say you don't get things done in a month. Sometimes I tell people, we're not going to get it done in a month or 6 months, but maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. Well, let's keep working on it. So the things that I have in place, the property tax bill insert, the ordinance for the arts, public art, my bylaws that have these structures in place, they were all just a few individuals working together to make those things happen. You seem to have a wonderful opportunity here to get together and try to find a few strategic things you can do to make a systematic change. So you said, well, I have the benefit of working with these structures. Yes, I do. But people just like us created those structures. And a lot of it's a piece of paper that has a description that sounds relatively easy. I think my board of supervisors, when they passed in 1994 the 2% ordinance for public art, I suspect they didn't really even know what that was. And so, and I know the one woman who was in the commission who said, hey, I think this is a really good idea. It's going to get us funding and we should do it. I saw, whatever city. So I think she was like working on it. How about this? Supervisors, will you prove it? They're like, okay, that sounds good. Now, it's really robust, and luckily we have lots of building programs, and it's been a cornerstone to our project. But it was really this one woman who got it going. So I think you all really have the power to make instrumental changes that hypothetically don't look that important on a piece of paper, but are extremely important to you and your community.
Right.
Right.